Hello, everybody. So I thought I'd do a podcast all about stuff that I've been thinking about recently, and not least among the subjects I've been thinking about recently is yet more reasons why Jordan Peterson is a clown and a fool. And I've been watching more of Jordan Peterson shit recently, and him talking about this notion that we need to become a monster. We need to become a monster, man, and all this sort of thing that we must confront and integrate the monstrous within us. And this is all this hero's journey stuff. And the more I try to unpick this notion of becoming a monster, the more I think this is a deeply, deeply unhealthy thing to try and tell people, and that it should be, that more people should be speaking out against this sort of rhetoric. Because with the hero's journey, very often on the hero's journey, you have a hero who, yeah, has to confront the monstrous within himself and resist the temptation to become a monster while defeating a villain who is a monster. So you have a villain who is clearly a monstrous person, like Voldemort or something. So Harry has to literally sort of confront the Voldemort within him, which is very standard hero's journey narrative stuff. At a point in the Deathly Hallows or something in Harry Potter, where he has to confront the bit of Voldemort that's in him, because it turns out that Harry is himself a Horcrux. But Harry never actually becomes a monster at all. Like, what the fuck? So, Jordan Peterson is But if you were to say that, if he were to write a book with that in it, he'd be saying nothing original, would he? So he wouldn't be able to make money from it, which is more or less sort of the point. You can't go around putting in a book, saying, in a self-help book, saying you have to be the hero of your journey, right? And you may have to confront the monstrous within you at some point along your journey, but you should obviously maintain your integrity and never cave into the monstrous, because that's totally unoriginal. It's stuff we already know. That is stuff we've been fed a bazillion times in basically every film. So there's nothing original there. There's no new ground there. What Jordan Peterson seeks to do is to subvert that age-old paradigm of the hero's journey and say that the hero's kind of a monster. It's like, well, no, the hero's not a monster at all. You're shifting boundaries and definitions and goalposts here. This is some confusing and faintly poisonous shit, I think. And I think it is wrong. It's all bollocks. This man is this kook, this crackpot, is spouting claptrap. It's rubbish. I was like, so what's the rational synthesis of this? Obviously, that we need to be the hero in our lives. We need to maintain integrity in the face of the monstrous, confront the monstrous, and be heroes, not monsters. Telling someone to be a monster is you might as well tell them to be the villain. It's well, you don't want to be the villain. Villains are miserable and unhappy, or they're power hungry, crucially, and I get more onto that later on in this little episode, I think, of whatever podcast this is. No, yeah, a villain, a real villain. Excuse me. Is either power hungry or money hungry or both. You know what I mean? They're obsessed with financial gain or the gain of power, usually in one way or another. And that they're just on this path of satanic ambition and trying to reach the highest heights in society, and to become perfect in one way or another. And they're out for the highest heights often. Heroes aren't like that. Heroes are demons and dragons and villains. They go after and try to defeat the people who are, let's say, trying to take over the world or something like that. Who is Bond, for instance? James Bond, the hero, of course. At various points in a Bond film, he'll have to confront the monstrous within him and all this sort of stuff, and go through all the ways in which he's a bit of a shithead, but ultimately takes down the bad guy who's trying to destroy the planet or take over the planet or whatever it is. So yeah. So like yeah, on various levels, Bond might be a bit of a shithead, and Bond is a bit of a bad example, I think. But he's not as monstrous, clearly, as the villain he's trying to defeat ever. And he's not really a monster; he's a hero, and we must draw that distinction between heroes and villains. I think otherwise we're left with sort of nothing really, and we're left in this deeply pessimistic, rather bizarre sort of Jordan Peterson paradigm where everyone's a monster and everyone has the monstrous within them. You know, also from my observations of people and life, I would have said that not everyone has the monstrous within them. Really, I've met loads and loads of people in my life. You know, what I think actually most people have within them, in their core, deep down, rather than being something monstrous, I think what they have within them is something rather frail and beautiful. Very often, you know, people don't have a dragon inside them. Quite often, they have a canary, um, or they have a daffodil, or they have a flamingo, or something wonderful. You know, it's not like what he says. You know, it's like Jordan Peterson. He looks like a villain, doesn't he? He looks evil. He's got that sort of like the ashen complexion, isn't he? And the very severe look about him. You know, the stern old schoolmaster. And yeah, like, well, maybe he has got the monstrous in him. Maybe he has got this satanic ambition. You know, where he's like, after all this money and fame and recognition and everything else for his clearly like slipshod work, all based on the Protestant work ethic, or the work ethic that I will refer to as the Protestant work ethic rather than the Catholic work ethic, which is what it's opposed to. But these work ethics, these can be seen throughout history and throughout different and all over the world. You know, outside of Catholic and Protestant spheres, obviously, it's just a useful handler, I think, for these two differing styles of work. So you can have like the Zen tradition in Buddhism, which is very austere, you know, and have more like Mahayana Buddhism, which is a bit more like cool and relaxed. And then like the Protestant traditions in the West, which you know, very austere, very frugal, like frugality and austerity is mentioned in this hard work ethic. Whereas you know, what I'd recommend and what's actually more successful as a work ethic is not hard work. And this is paradoxical as well. And it's very hard to sort of get your head around, since hard work does lead to some results, granted, and it can lead to success. However, I'm tempted to say that when it comes to hard work and the ethic of hard work, it's like those successes seem to me to be more like accidents almost, and that every 100 people who try to become a success via hard work and through grafting, you know, you'll get like one or two people who do become successful that way. And you know, you get these awful examples of successful people who are like, well, I worked hard for where I am, and this, that, and the other, and hard work, and you pull yourself up by your bootstraps, and you get on with it and work fucking hard. Whereas in cases of almost everyone, it fails, but it works with these people, and these people sort of preach it, you know. And like, really, this is not the way to go about working at all. There's a more intelligent way to go about working, which is to firstly be consistent, but actually to really take your time with work. And you know, all these sorts of phrases that we get taught as well. This is leading into the other work ethic. You know, it's a marathon, not a sprint. Slow and steady wins the race. All this sort of stuff. It is true. That stuff is true, honestly. And I have learned this the hard way. I've learned this through doing hard work. And I know that the opposite of hard work achieves better results. It does, and it certainly does. So yeah, I mean, the examples I've given before of tennis players, we have one person who focuses more on consistency, not these blinding feats of exertion like you have with, say, Rafael Nadal. The person I'm talking about is Roger Federer. When it comes down to the differences between these two people, the crucial differences are all in style. And style is all important when it comes to working, the style in which you work or play. Tennis, for example. So you have, for instance, the Federer style of working, conservative, saving energy, crucially, trying not to get injured by exerting oneself too much. Rafael Nadal, great tennis player, not as great as Federer, not as great as Sampras. Federer and Sampras both exhibit this style of working. Nadal has had an astounding career. However, he hasn't had perhaps the career he could have had because he's getting injured more often than Federer and Sampras and Djokovic and those sorts of players. Do you see? So, in work, there's sort of the quintessentials of Catholic type of work, building cathedrals, say. The expectation when it came to building medieval cathedrals was that it would take a century to build them if they're being quick. You have these astounding buildings, these beautiful structures, but when they're building them, it's not like a skyscraper, which is very Protestant. No expectation at all that these structures are going to take anywhere like close to a year or two to build, like skyscrapers. The expectation there is it'll take a century at least, but it'll take our time with it. Very slow pace of work, I imagine, on cathedrals. Very painstaking, and every little bit of it is going to be astounding at the end, obviously. But we're going to really take our time with it, and also take the time with it probably out of safety considerations more than anything else. Because I imagine moving the stones, really quite slowly, up the sort of wooden structures that they built up the sides of the cathedral, and placing the stone, and everyone being really quite careful and doing everything quite gingerly when they're up on those structures, and not wanting to drop anything and have it fall on some guy's head, for instance, and all those considerations involved with it. Whereas you've got skyscrapers being built, thrown up, these massive cathedrals, if you like, of capitalism, and the work ethic is totally different now. Since in the hard work ethic, in the if you like Protestant work ethic, I'm tempted to say the emphasis isn't necessarily on hard work as such. The emphasis is very much on fast work. They want work to be quick. They want a job done well and quickly, which is a bit like having your cake and eating it, isn't it? It doesn't really work like that. Is that everyone knows, everyone knows, if you want something done properly and to a really high standard, you have to take your time with it. And the way I've learned this is through writing. I write novels. The first novel I wrote, the science fiction novel set in the sort of semi-distant future, I applied the Protestant work ethic to it, and I got an unbelievable result. I was writing 5,000 words a day, and I had the first draft done in 2 weeks. Yeah? Blinding progress. And I was astounded with it. And I was astounded with myself. I never believed I'd be able to do that. And I was really quite pleased with myself having done that. And I thought I was rather proud of it. However, I then went through it again, started reading, I think this can never get fucking published. What was the point? However, now I've started writing a second book. It's a novella. It's a novella called Sergeant Arson. And I applied Protestant working ethic to that as well. Got the first draft done in a pretty short amount of time. 2 weeks, I reckon. Again, not then I realized that it's probably not going to be good enough on the first draft. I need to redraft it to a second draft. Did the second draft, still not good enough. Second draft edit, still not good enough. Eventually, third draft edit, not good enough. Edit again, not good enough, and so on and so on and so on. Now I'm on the fourth draft of it, and what I'm doing now is I am not like doing this hard work, banging my head against a brick wall stuff. I'm doing less of that, and I'm trying to incorporate a gentler style of working in my approach to this project, and not going like that and quickly. Not doing that. No quick stuff. Just going through it very slowly, redrafting it very slowly, just doing a little bit here, there, and everywhere whenever I can. And this is really the key, actually, to making very quick progress with the project. Also, don't setting yourself targets. I think that is actually bad discipline. I don't think you should do that. Stephen King swears by the targets he sets himself, 2,000 words per day. That's quite a lot. That's quite onerous. If you want to be as prolific as Stephen King, very possibly go for those sorts of numbers. If you do 2,000 words a day, you will have a 60,000 word novel in, maths don't fail me now, 30 days. So it's 30 days to a novel of 60,000 words. All right, which is, if you want to do what Stephen King seemingly does, putting out a new book every year, then go for that, And if you really want that sort of success, fine. But what I'm finding now, because what I'm writing is comedy, and every little beat has to work, every sort of bit has to be right with it, and I just want it all correct. Now when I'm going through it slower and slower, not rushing through the redrafting phase, I'm coming across more bits and pieces in it that I never thought I'd find before, of just slight improvements that can be made at this point. And this is like really the sort of the final stage of completion of, the sculptor finding the sculpture in the stone and all this stuff. I think of it as being akin to what Michelangelo would have been doing, just very carefully with sandpaper or something, sanding the nose on his David or the cock. Or there's a leaf over it. No, it's an exposed cock, so he would have been doing it. Yeah. At some point, he would have had to polish the cock of the David, wouldn't he? Yeah. But all that stuff is like very fine, very painstaking. I don't want to invoke the word pain in this. Fine and delicate tuning of it, fine tuning. That's more like it. Yes. And carefully, just getting everything just right with it. Finishing touches. Yeah. And Stephen King, in his self-help book on writing, which I would have actually recommended to anyone before sort of going through more sincere endeavors at writing, and being like, if you are Stephen King says 2 drafts of anything is enough. I do not agree with him. I think that's my position. You might be a 2 drafts guy. You might be in the business of trying to put out commercial fiction, in which case 2 drafts might be enough. It might be. Okay. It might be enough. Okay. But if you're doing something perhaps a bit more, dare I say, literary, and something that needs to be honed and refined and needs to be on point, then you might be into 3rd draft territory. You might be into 4th draft territory. depending on what it is you're doing. So, not all writers are created equal. Not all writing ends up being equal to all other forms of writing. Yeah, that's more like the point, I think, with it. You need to figure out what sort of writer you are. So, like, when it comes to any and all self-help, I don't say fucking ignore all of it. Don't buy any of it. Figure it out on your own. You know, even the best writing guides, you know, the Margaret Atwood writing guides are very good, sure, but even her, ignore her, fuck her. What does she know? Probably nothing that's really applicable to you, since all writers have their own process, and it's different for every single one of us. So, you must not get caught up in these things, I don't think. Excuse me. So what I do for writing now, I was following the Stephen King method of doing 2,000 words a day, drafting 2,000 words a day, and I was applying that to Sergeant Arson. Yeah, I got the third draft actually done in, well, it must have been 30,000 words. So yeah, 15 days or so, 2 weeks, and but I don't agree with that anymore. It's too quick. I missed too many things. I missed typos. I missed and stuff that could be improved upon, which sort of left in there, which shouldn't have been left in there, if you see what I mean. So I ended up not being happy with it. And what I'm finding now, going through the fourth draft of it, is I am really, really, really enjoying the process of writing it. Like I never thought I would. And it is just, and all that comes from just taking a step back and being a bit calmer and being able to see the wood for the trees hence, and having a bit more objectivity with your own work also, and just relaxing a bit more into the process. And I must do like 800 words a day or something, and at this point, like I don't care when it gets finished. Like 800 words a day, when will it be finished? In about a month and a half, I guess. You know, like 6 weeks. It'll be finished in 6 weeks. Like 800 words a day. Like in terms of the sort of writing I've done in the past, in all these periods in my sort of writing career, if you like, so far, I've been storming through pieces of work and being, yeah, very prolific. You know, like, all that's gone now. You know, I don't do that anymore. It is prolific. Like no one really wins any prizes for being prolific at all. It's not necessarily a good thing. If you're prolific and you're coming out with loads and loads of rubbish, well, you're coming out with loads and loads of rubbish, and something's not working. And very, very often, I think the thing that's not working is you're doing it too quickly, or you're doing this horrible temptation we have now with the internet of just hitting publish, just putting it out and going blip, 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 blip. Like I had this phase of writing Instagram poetry, which I still want to do, but I insist now more that the pieces I write have gone through a few more stages of being honed before I consider putting them out there. And I must apply some discipline to myself to prevent myself from hitting that publish button. And yeah, so I would like to write a book about this, like not a self-help book, but a book that has a very important message behind it and very important meaning behind it. I want to call it something like Working Fast and Slow. That's to ape the title of Daniel Kahneman's, the Nobel laureate in economics book, Thinking Fast and Slow. I'm being a very strong advocate of slow working and taking a slower pace. Through something for a project. So yeah, I mean, when it comes to targets, don't set targets. I would have said just do whatever, but be consistent. Do what you can do every single day. That's more like the thing I think with writing. Um, you know, if it's a line of a poem, do that. If you manage a bit more, like, manage as much as you can, but just do it every day. If you can. No, but yeah, like, don't think to yourself, I must hit 2,000 words. I must. So I'm going to rush through it all and type furiously to get my 2,000 words in per day. And ding, done my 2,000 words. Don't think like that. Think what you're putting at stake with every new sentence with it, and think like more like this. Think that the whole story hinges not on the first sentence, like a lot of writers seem to think it does, but on every sentence. Every beat is important. Every word is important. Every full stop is important. Every comma is important. Every fucking thing is important about a book. And treat it like the beautiful cathedral it should be, and not some cheap, shitty, shoddy skyscraper. And yeah, that's more like the message of this style of working thing. Treat it as though you're building a cathedral, not a skyscraper. And also, like, from this whole slow and steady wins the race kind of stuff, yeah, I think you will end up finding that you tortoises among you will end up beating the hares, the rabbits, who rush ahead furiously and tire themselves out and need to sleep beneath a tree. Yeah. And just plod along, and you'll be amazed at the progress you make. You will. And in a sense, it takes more discipline to rein yourself in and say, no more now. I'll do it later. And this is what I call harnessing laziness. I'll do, maybe I'll do 200 words later or something. Just a little bit more, step by step, gradual steps, small steps. And you will make a lot of progress doing that, and it'll surprise you how much progress you make. You might not be drafting novels in 2 weeks. You might not be doing that. And to draft it like a full length novel, it might be more like 8 or 9 weeks. But say you've got the ambition of writing a book a year, 8 or 9 weeks, what is that? It's not a lot. Is it really? And yeah, would it be 8 or 9 weeks? Yeah, it would be about that, I think. 800 words a day. A bit longer, possibly. But whatever it is, if you're aiming for a book a year, 8 or 9 weeks out of a year is what? Month and a half? Month and 3/4. There are 12 months in a year. That's what I ended up doing when I was putting in these Herculean efforts of writing. I was like, I'm done now. And I won't write for ages. And that's dreadful practice. It's the worst thing is it's working hard, it's working fast, and it's concentrating all this effort and furious typing for a few weeks, and hating every minute of it, by the way, and then the project's done. It's done. It's done. Like, of course it isn't. It's drafted, but when are you going to go back to your draft and do more to it? And you might need to write 4 drafts. I'm tempted to say, if you take the slow and steady approach with writing, it will do a lot of things for you other than churning. It will probably churn out better manuscripts doing it that way. I suspect it. And you probably won't need to draft them all that much, as much, and it frees up more time for doing things like socializing, which writers are famously terrible at. Probably because they're all working hard at their manuscripts and having to put it through successive drafts again and again and again, and constantly editing it because they've made so many fuck ups. They're going too quickly. So yeah, like that's roughly speaking what I have to say about work. And Jordan Peterson is a preacher of the hard work ethic, basically. Don't follow it. It's nonsense. It's rubbish. Thank you everyone for watching. Bye. Love you lots.